So, in this video I'm going to be going over the ancient lore of schools of magic, the origins of the schools as well as the overall lore. I'll end up making more videos down the line where I explain the individual laws of each school. So this video is going to come off more akin to a storytelling as opposed to a standard video, and my writing is by no means good, so apologies if things don't make sense or are overcomplicated, but anyway, before I get into it, hit like if you enjoy, subscribe if you want to keep up to date on the project, and let's get right into it. The first person to discover magic was a researcher. One day, whilst studying minerals in a mine, they came upon a grey, glowing crystal geode that they couldn't identify. Upon taking a fragment of the geode for inspection, the shard that was taken shifted to a blue colour, and remained that way regardless of what the researcher did. The presence of the crystal made the researcher's perception of the world shift. They could feel something around them, even if there appeared to be nothing. They studied these surroundings and found a link, amongst most things, a living membrane of sorts that even they were a part of. The discovery of this aura among all matter led the researcher down a path of magic and wonder as they began manipulating the aura in various ways, creating things that they described as spells. Their research tomes are lists with various shapes and forms that they had managed to discover. They then named this new scientific endeavour thaumaturgy. But the thaumaturge had tunnel vision. All they sought for was knowledge, more and more knowledge, and one day they were met with a disembodied voice that offered such knowledge. This being claimed to be a higher power from an alternate dimension, one from a place where contacting mortals was near impossible, and only enlightened humans could be contacted directly. The thaumaturge leapt at the chance of this knowledge, and the being guided them. The thaumaturge was given an orb, a red, pulsating orb. Looking at it, the thaumaturge knew that there was something living about the orb. The thaumaturge tried to crush the orb in their hand after being instructed to do so by the being, falling in pain as they did it. The orb was taking their life force from them. The fragment of crystal that was once a sky blue shade had shifted, for the first time in years of study and research, to red. The thaumaturge, never being one to back down at the precipice of a discovery, kept going to discover a new branch, but not of science, of purely magic. They named this magic after the orb they were gifted. The orb's brilliant red hue is an obvious sign of living blood, and hemomancy was born. The now hemomancer found that they could no longer use the research tomes that they'd spent years writing, so they took this knowledge and hid it from the world. In a world where there was no such thing as magic, that kind of power held by one person could be catastrophic. A young engineer discovers some loose notes when exploring an abandoned cabin. The notes describe objects that contain remnants of energy from creation itself. The tinkerer ends up discovering some objects with a high amount of this residual energy. They eventually get to the point where they can harness the energy itself, like a form of magical battery. And beyond that, even imbue specially designed equipment to harness this energy. The equipment is able to absorb the energy from objects and obtain some of their properties. These objects are destroyed in the process, but the results are astounding. Armor, tools, weapons, all of it as an enhancement to human ability, and as such, people started to use artifice to create all sorts of ornate magical things, mystic lanterns that run off emitted magic, wirelessly sending signals from one place to another. But the equipment was the main feature. Magical handheld spell launchers, with wise artificers even being able to program their own spells to use with the device. A Puritan hears from the original tinker that discovered artifice that artifice is actually a branch of magic, and that the original magic of which it was based on was lost to time. This Puritan leaves their artifice ways and goes on a journey to find true magic. An adventure that turns out to be successful, finding the Hemomancer's lost notes and reviving a long-dead art of thaumaturgy. But he cannot do too much in the field, not without a thaumaturgy ring. During the Puritan's adventure, a very small few artificers discover a latent ability within them. Artificers cannot wield magic. Nobody can in civilizations, besides these few. They learn that they can interface with the matter itself. They can manipulate it and change it into other forms. This transformation of materials is dubbed alchemistry, and later it becomes its own separate branch, losing touch with artifice completely. Later on, the civilizations of artificers go on mining ventures for materials to make better armor, and they come across a crystal geode. The grey crystals mean nothing to the artificers, as they aren't useful for armor or equipment. The Puritan learns of this, and immediately recognizes them from the Hemomancer's notes. Upon gathering a crystal, it becomes a sky blue shade. The Puritan takes as many of the crystals as they can, and leaves. They noticed that after the initial gem had turned blue, none of the others had. Over time, these gems came into presence with numerous humans, turning from grey into blues, reds, and greens. The allocations of the fragments was aligned perfectly with the type of magic they were specializing in. The blue gems appeared for humans who had shown prowess in the area of thaumaturgy, and the same applies to the alchemists and the green gems. The red gems, however, appeared to have no purpose to these people, and over time these crystals appeared to turn into rings worn by their owners. You might have wondered what happened to the original Hemomancer that was around hundreds of years ago. His dive into hemomancy greatly extended their natural lifespan, so they lived on until this period. The Hemomancer now was a master of the blood arts, and eventually heard of this new beacon of arcane knowledge, and decided to come out of hiding. They became a teacher to the other people with the Hemomancer rings. This completed trio of magical schools grew into a great civilization, and as it did so, the artificers decided to join it, combining their magical technology with the existing foundation of society to create a utopia for all in it. The artificer culture became entwined with the other schools, to the point where artificers created a ring of their own design based on those from the other schools. The ring was not made out of the same crystals as the others, since the artificers do not have a magical source of their own. And that is the ancient history of the schools of magic and how they came into being. I hope that you enjoyed that little lore dump in an episode. I just thought that it would be neat to give some background into what the origins of each school is. And I will also be later on going over the non-ancient history, over the events that happen just before the player enters the game. And as you can tell, this pack is actually very heavily lore-based, so I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, give it a like. If you want to keep up with it, again, you can consider subscribing, and you will get notified of every single time I post a video about this. I have also recently set up a Patreon where you can get Patreon exclusive updates on the lowest tier. On the middle tier, you can get early access to builds of the pack when they come out. And in the highest tier, you will get your name in a ritual or power, or you can have a phrase of your choosing as the name of the ritual or power. Anyways, thank you all for watching. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that you have a nice morning, afternoon, evening, or night, whatever time it is where you are. And see ya!